Assembly. We're eagerly waiting for Alice Wahome also to join us much later in the course of the program. Good morning, gentlemen and lady.
Good morning.
All right, let's just begin with you with the story from Siaya, especially with the cancellation of the campaigning in Siaya. What really happened in Siaya, Dr. Zani?
I think in various regions, and this started, I think, with the advent of independent candidates and comparing the independent candidates and the ODM candidates, and especially on the ground in terms of management and reaching to the electorate and talking to the electorate. And it seemed disharmony because every camp is actually campaigning for themselves, and then also the candidates taking various positions. You will recall earlier on, we were trying as much as a party, as much as possible as a party, to ensure that voting goes for ODM candidates, and there was reasoning behind this because of the numbers that are required in the National Assembly and in the Senate in terms of policy, in terms of legislation that would be very important. So I think this is going on in various places, and I think it escalated in Siaya, where it became necessary for Kalundu to make that decision that electioneering is going to be suspended for some time until there's a sense and a semblance of that this can be conducted in a peaceful environment. Most of the candidates have been campaigning in different places, but you know, the followers are more or less the same people. So the moment they are on a scene and they support somebody else and the other person is talking, they want that position to be made. And I think this is really in mode with each of the candidates really fighting for their positions to ensure that they're able to get the relevant seats. So I think the tension has been escalating because of the differences. And if you remember, both of these candidates, both Gumo and Rasanga, have been part of ODM before, but now they are really in different camps because of Gumo being an independent and Rasanga still campaigning on an ODM ticket. So I think this is the issue that arose in Siaya, and as a result of that, the campaigns have been, suspended. We are thinking, as this is going on, that these two camps are able to get together and find amicable ways. Let therefore campaigns be held in different places rather than all of them at the same time. Let supporters be in different places so that we avoid this sort of situation where we have one big rally and everybody tries to be there. And I think especially when leadership is there, then all camps want to be there for recognition. But I think this might not work. And I think the way Kalundu has gone really is an indication. And I think this goes to show, especially for the camps, that if they continue like this, they won't also get a chance to sell their own manifestos and their own ideas. So I think it's that tension and that level of high-heaped campaign that has caused that sort of situation. And I think within the next few days, they could approach Kalundu and be able to explain that they are now able to campaign in a peaceful manner. Because really it's about everybody sharing their campaign goals, their campaign strategies, and their outputs that they expect as candidates.
All right, let's see from Phillips. Kisia, looking at this, of course, also you've been flying way below the radar for the longest time. It's good to see you really coming up for air, at least. And you've been also maybe keenly observing what is happening currently with the political atmosphere in the country, given what is happening or has happened in Madarek and also what we see in Siaya. Is it indicative of the sort of the temperature that is arising or maybe is fermenting, way below, that could be also awaiting tinderbox to explode?
Thank you, Dibal, and thank you for hosting me this morning in the midst of my friends from NASA. I think what you see, particularly in the NASA areas, and more specifically in ODM areas.
Yeah, maybe just to be very clear, you inclusive of NASA or?
No, I'm not part of NASA.
You're not part
I must make it very clear, I'm part of Jubilee. So what you see in these areas, of course, is as a result of poor leadership and the leadership imposing unpopular candidates on the people in those particular regions. Again, you see revolt. People are revolting. People are saying, enough is enough. We've had enough of you. Please allow us to make our choices. And I'll not be surprised if independent candidates in the so-called strong NASA areas coming through, beating thoroughly those people who have been given tickets by NASA.
Yes.
I also think that most of the candidates who have been imposed on people have no ideas. Some of them have been there. They've been given an opportunity to provide leadership, and they have thoroughly failed. So the masses are saying, listen, we cannot go through this for another 5 years. Enough is just enough. You give me one county where NASA has succeeded. Look at Nairobi, total failure. My friend Anyang Nyong'o has decided to go in for governorship because he believes there is poor leadership, or possibly theft. Look at Mombasa. Now, those are 3 big counties in Nairobi, but there is nothing for the NASA leadership to show. And I think that's why there's a lot of heat. People are just saying, no, we can't. We cannot go through this for another 5 years.
All right. Farah Maalim, good morning.
Morning to you. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Yeah, it's unfair to characterize the charged political environment in the NASA strongholds as a failure on the part of the leadership of NASA itself. No, you see, people see NASA as the party of change. They see as a government in waiting. Nobody wants to be left out of the government. Even those who are independent, who are coming from NASA strongholds, that's why they will do everything to be there when there's a NASA rally. They want to be seen to be supporting the presidential candidate and the deputy presidential candidate in those places. Watch, for example, a very strong player in Kitui, Charity. Charity does not go around with Jubilee bigwigs there when she's campaigning. She is clearly in NASA. But she is putting a very strong case for herself for the governorship of Kitui. That democratic space is there. We also have our candidate who is from Wiper, and we have an independent candidate called Musila, David Musila, a very senior and a respected senator. They're all fighting for that thing. At the end of the day, whichever way it turns out, this is a NASA stronghold. They are within NASA. It's just that because they couldn't get the space in NASA, that they have to look for the other option and believe that they can convince the electorate to vote for them. So when you see that charged environment, it's because this is the party that has the popularity on the ground, and this is the party that will carry not less than 60–65% of the votes, the popular votes. So for Kisia, too bad. Kisia has not been in the government for all that I know. She's tried very hard to be in the government, just like Ochodo. But never got the space. And the only time when there's an opportunity for change, he ends up in the wrong camp. You know what I mean?
All right. Okay. Also, if I may show you what we have also from Professor Anyang Nyong'o. This is his manifesto that is just launched as well. Governor Kisumu County 2017. Of course, manifesto hashtag Kisumu stand up, hashtag teach Tire. Right? You tell us what teach Tire means, or do I get it right? What does teach Tire?
Teach Tire, yes.
Yes. What does it mean?
Done. Work is being done.
Work is being done.
Yeah.
And maybe we can also discuss some of the manifesto highlights to revitalize agriculture for food security and agribusiness, ensure a healthy population living in a clean environment, also build modern physical infrastructure, promote skills development and innovation, conserve the environment while opening the Kisumu lakefront for business, provide decent housing in inclusive towns, semi-urban centers and villages, promote sports, culture and arts, promote industrialization and vibrant service sector, supported by sustainable energy sources and information and communication technologies, promote tourism driven by culture and heritage, as well as new products, deepen the structures of devolved governance and strengthen revenue generation and accountability in use of public funds. So this is your manifesto. When did you launch it?
In Kisumu last Friday.
Last Friday.
At the Grand Suisse Hotel.
All right. And of course, we can peg this to other parties' manifestos as well. Also, we had Ekuro Aukot also launching his manifesto for Third Way Alliance as well. But the question that people are asking, so what have you been campaigning on if you're just launching the manifesto, you know, some few months shy to the general election? What has been the subject of maybe content?
We've been campaigning on same ideas.
Same ideas.
And putting them to the people, on getting the people's reaction. In the meantime, we had put up the manifesto anyway. The only thing is that we have not put it like we did formally the other day. But that doesn't mean that the content has not been under discussion all this while. Indeed, what we have had, we have had very many discussion groups here in Nairobi, in Kisumu, in the county, discussing those same ideas. And finally, we put it out. And what we shall do once in government is to have an implementation program, which we are also developing now. I mean, this is what I did when I was in Ministry in Planning and National Development. We had a NAC manifesto, which was called Democracy and Popular Empowerment.
Yes.
Once we're in government, we translated into an action program, which was called Economic Recovery Strategy for Wealth and Employment Creation. The same process can be used at the country level to derive an implementation program from the manifesto, which broadly states the principles, objectives, and strategies that we need to use to change the county for the better. But let me just say something about this violence. I don't agree with my friend Kisia that violence is only confined to NASA regions. I mean, look at cases where my friend Mishra is standing. Mishra was beaten almost to death. He's a candidate on a Jubilee ticket, beaten by the same Jubilee people. And you can see it even here in Kiambu, you know, the kind of violence that you see going on. The point is that when we signed the code of conduct during nomination, I think that document should be serious. You know, I said earlier, after signing the code of conduct, that both candidates and government agencies should sign that code of conduct, so that as soon as we sign it, government agencies also looking after security should go into action. Yes. I mean, for example, I myself was turned from a funeral, no, not from a funeral, from a function, a school function, by thugs coming out of them, sponsored by a candidate. Now, such candidates who are obviously silly should be immediately apprehended. The other day when we were having a rally at Rabur, the security agencies, after we had told them to take strict action, actually apprehended some thugs in a pickup carrying lethal weapon to a rally in Rabur to reduce traffic. But this time, the police acted promptly on information, which is great. And I did talk to the county police commander, and he said they're going to take very strict action against those guys so that that is not repeated again. That's the kind of action we need. If indeed the agencies take prompt action against such untoward behavior by certain individuals campaigning, then this thing can be brought to an end. But you can't blame a whole party on that. Okay, those supporters who are from independent candidates, okay, that doesn't mean that all independent candidates behave like that. That doesn't mean that the people are angry against ODM. No, this is just one silly idiot who thinks that by using violence, he is going to scare his opponent. And I think if prompt action is taken against those people by security agencies, then we can have a civilized campaign. But if you make generalized statement that Kisia is making, we don't help the situation because you're just getting involved in the blame game. That doesn't help.
I just want to add something, Mayor.
Yes.
Professor, I think it's very important that the discussion about counties and performances and governors needs to be something about social accountability and audit that need to be done across the 47 counties. Yes. Rather than a rhetoric that Nairobi governor, Mombasa governor, this governor has failed, the others hasn't. We need to come up with clear indicators for failure and success. These need to be discussed. But if we're looking at NASA affiliate and Jubilee affiliate governors, we've seen governors like Waria, for example, and Wambora, who was impeached twice within the Senate, also been accused of various things that they had done. So I think that loose talk is not to be encouraged here. I think we need to have validity in everything we say and really balance issues and picture.
Yeah, but also we should...
I think, Debal, I don't agree with what Zani and Professor have said. When you have a family unit and there's disharmony within the family, and there's failure within the family, the person who takes responsibility is the head of family. In this case, the head of family of NASA is known. But again, I hear there are 5 principles, so I don't know, but there's at least from the 5, there's a core principle. So if there is a problem, if there are challenges within the so-called NASA strongholds,
yes,
there's somebody who must take responsibility, okay? Because Prof has talked about signing a code of conduct. And I'm sure ODM or NASA has the same. I'm sure the candidates or the leadership in NASA has encouraged or is encouraging their candidates to behave in a certain manner. So I still firmly and strongly believe that when there is failure, as we can see, and disharmony and violence in those so-called NASA strongholds, it is because of poor leadership. Now, coming back to counties, Zani, you are a nominated senator. You very well know that Nairobi alone accounts for more than 50% of GDP. In terms of budgeting, Nairobi gets, I think, almost 30% of the total transfer from national government. So it would be unrealistic, or whatever the figure is, but it's a huge figure. So it would be unrealistic, to make reference to counties which may not make a big difference in terms of, economic empowerment and contribution to GDP. Nairobi County, because I can talk with a lot of authority. But when I left, no, one second, Prof, we talked about Kisumu. There's no harm me talk about Nairobi. I'm giving an example. When I left office, the debt level stood at 11 billion. We are now at 55 billion debt. The transfer from national government to the county government in the last 4 years is close to 55 billion. And there's nothing to, there's nothing to show. So if you take the three counties, Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu, those almost account for 40% of the transfer from national government. So if these three counties cannot function, and they function poorly, then devolution will not work. All right. Nairobi must function properly.
So who was owing you the 11 billion as a debt? Is it the government? Is it the government?
No, not government. In fact, let's not get into...
No, because we want to get it...
I'm just saying that when I left office, when I left office, I left a debt of 11 billion.
Mainly from who?
Debt.
Mainly
from who exactly?
I can't give you details here, but I can remember the figure.
But no, just a moment.
There's 11, one second, I'm saying there's 11 billion that we owed to our suppliers. Okay?
You owed to
owed, yes, you owed. Okay. Owed.
Right. Okay,
we owed suppliers 11 billion. Right now, the county owes suppliers 55 billion. They claim that the government owes them 70 billion. That's absolute nonsense. Because out of the 70 billion, 60 billion is on account of land in Embakasi.
All right, so so the 70 billion that we're talking about, is it, a cumulative figure from you also during the time that you were in office as well? Or this is when...
It has moved from 11 billion to 55 billion. Now, if that is not efficiency and failure, you tell me what is failure and inefficiency.
Dibal, to begin with, it's good for us to be able to get certain basic facts right. It's not rocket science. By the way, Nairobi gets just about 4% of the remittances from the government, central government.
Yeah.
Just about 4%.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, Mombasa gets slightly over 1%. Slightly over 1% for the remittances from the central government. I don't know how much Kisumu gets, but I think Kisumu would probably get also. So the three cities, the three cities put together still account for less than 7%. It's not 40%. It's good for us to understand. That is not a reason for there to be inefficiencies in this. I don't want to defend any county government myself. I have absolutely no business defending. But it's always good for us to get these facts right. And then the debt that is owed by the government to these county governments is colossal, particularly Mombasa and Nairobi and Kisumu, as he puts it. So what's wrong with, how much does the central government owe Nairobi right now? Forget about that piece of land. I can't remember. Outside the piece of land, it must be running into maybe 15, 20 billion.
All right.
Yeah. Let me just finish.
You finish, then we take a short break right now.
Let me just finish.
Also hear from
you see, for us to be able to try and get a better efficiency and try and get this country run better, people like the four of us or the five of us who are here, who are leaders in this country here, need to be let's talk facts And let's come up with good ideas that's going to take this country forward. We are in a political and campaign, what you call season, understandable.
Thank you.
But at the same time, let's not deviate from reality and the truth and that disposition that needs to offer leadership to the country itself.
All right, thank you. We continue with the conversation, and the pivotal election scheduled for August 8th is just a month away, and it is understandable that temperatures are running high as the various parties prepare for the vote. At the center of the considerable attention in the past week has been the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the body which bears the heavy duty of delivering a free, fair and credible election. Now, it is noteworthy that this election comes exactly 10 years after the disastrous 2007 presidential election, when botched tallying of the votes resulted in a campaign of intercommunal killings and brutal response from the police, which left more than 1,100 people dead. The duty on the shoulders of the electoral commissioners is therefore a heavy one. They must ensure that the 2017 election goes smoothly and that the outcome of the vote gives confidence to the unsuccessful candidate to concede defeat. It is unfortunate that disputes among the political class meant that the current commission was only installed in February, just 6 months before the elections. The commission has done a reasonable job of preparing for the elections within the timelines it operates in. However, it should engage closely with all players, the candidates at the national, county level, observers, civil society, among others, to make clear how it is preparing for the election and the safeguards in place for a free and fair vote. Politicians who have significant clout and have a big impact on the behavior of their supporters should weigh their words carefully when discussing the Electoral Commission to avoid creating a situation that breeds gloom and doom and diminishes trust in the overall process. That is the story that we're discussing this morning with our panelists here, and of course also looking at the headlines as well. I'm holding court this morning with Dr. Agnes Zani. She's the General Secretary of ODM. Also we do have with us Professor Anyang Nyong'o, who's a senator from Kisumu, and also the governor aspirant in Kisumu as well, Philip Kisia, the former CEO and town clerk of Nairobi County. Also, we are holding court this morning with Farah Maalim, who is the former Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly and also is the Deputy Leader of the Wiper Party, and Alice Wahome, Member of Parliament from Kandara. Let's continue this conversation. And just looking at what we have on the front page of a Daily Nation, we have Jubilee on spot, overrunning unfair tactics. This is what it's saying. Human Rights Watch accuses state agencies of undermining constitutions by openly getting involved in politics campaigns. And this story is well fleshed out on page 6 of the Daily Nation. And tucked away what they're saying, let me just read a couple of it. It says 3 weeks ago, the Ombudsman warned against the use of state resources in political campaigns. Government agencies are still getting involved in electioneering. This is a total disregard of what the Constitution says when it comes to Election Offence Act. And of course, the state, the Public Officers Act, right? And
Public Officers and Ethics Act.
And Ethics Act. And we've seen this really has been happening with the, especially with the Jubilee administration. Let's begin with Alice Wahome because she's joining in very late as well. Tell us more about this. Do you agree? And of course, with what is being espoused on the front page of a Daily Nation and fleshed out on page 6 of the Daily Nation today.
Thank you, Debra. I had requested that you put me from the campaigns, Debra, and I think everybody is actually very busy, and I'm happy to be here this morning.
You know, I really pushed you to be
here. So I regret that I have come in when the debate was going on, and I could wait just in a short, maybe 1 minute, in terms of what I found being discussed before I comment on that.
Sure.
That, you know, whether the county governments are actually doing a good job and how they are handling the public resources that are coming through their hands. And I think the big question was, or the point was, you know, where are we as we move to the next governors, or the same, some of them the same governors? And I think it would be hypocritical, Debra, for us to actually not want to question or interrogate the rising public debts through supplies. County governments, even the national government, would have debts that are not secured. No public entity is supposed to actually request for supply if the money is not in place into their accounts. So there is a problem there. If we are having debts from suppliers that are not being met, that are being actually increased, like what I found Kisia discussing, from 11 billion to 55, Kenyans must know. The minute you get a contract, you must question and ask whether there is fund for that particular tender. So I think they are committing irregularities, and it's really a criminal offense for you to procure when you don't have money. Under the Public Procurement Act, the finance law, the money must be in the account. Even if not in the account, the budget must have been allocated and completed with. So let me move to the question of...
All right, before you even go there, I think we need to hover around what you're discussing, but I think because we need to plumb deeper a bit. What does it portend for the incoming governors? Let's say we have Governor Anyang Nyong'o really coming, and they're saddled with all this debt, right? Is there a mechanism where we know we had a transition authority before we had the governors really coming into office, and that transition was not really smooth? And right now it seems we still have the same gap, that there's no any transition governing body in between to try and cushion the governors who are coming, because you'll be saddled with all this debt.
No, there is after the transition authority, we have the intergovernmental committee, which actually they have actually proposed that we actually enhance it and build its capacity further by making it either maybe an authority so that it can handle all these issues coming. But I don't think the biggest, there is one, the old debts that they have inherited. They inherited debts and assets. There is assets that are being lost in the manner in which the transition was actually handled. But there is an inventory of almost all the assets that the county governments received from both, actually, because you know the assets were both from the national government, because there were those assets that were being managed under the national government, but now have moved because of devolution
through the local government.
Yes, through the local government.
Yes.
But the point here is that in the manner which because like the land itself automatically actually now cedes or is transferred automatically under the new law or proposals to the county government. But I think there is where now they will do dubious things. We have tried to interrogate how they will deal with that, but you can easily do properly. But the old debt is not even the biggest problem. It's the new debt they are creating. So new governors will actually go onto their knees. They will not know whether to start paying debts. Some debts are questionable, and others, others are thefts actually.
All right, but we had a prime solution that was actually being brought to bear by the Senate when we had Kimani Umatangi coming with the assumption to office of governor's bill.
Let me deal with the two issues. First, the assumption office bill that Senator Umatangi was proposed, which unfortunately we did not pass before the Senate was adjourned sine die. But let me deal with the issue of debt and the financial health of counties. Of course, a big problem. I agree with my friend Alice that when counties were created, they assumed or inherited assets and liabilities from the former local authorities, which also included debts owed to these local authorities by the national government. Also included unremitted statutory deductions that were supposed to come from this local authority to the national government, although the unremitted statutory deductions from local authorities were very small. Now, since then, however, and I do agree with my friend Kisia here, since then, however, county governments have accumulated debts which quite often really are questionable and should be questioned. And they have been questioned by the Auditor General. I am the chairman of Senate's Public Accounts and Investments Committee, and the Auditor General's report to the financial year 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, which we dealt with. I mean, we didn't deal with them exhaustively because of time, but at least we finished the first set of audited queries in 2013, 2014, and did some in 2014, 2015. The general picture is the following. The bigger the county, the more likely it is that it's going to have debt owed to it by the government, the national government. Nairobi being one county which the national government owes a lot of money. The bigger the county, the tendency is that if it is not well managed, then it must accumulate debts which it will pass on to the next governing body in the county. Now, what we have said in Kisumu is that our first task will be to do a forensic audit of the debts, to find out which are genuine debts, which are dubitable debts, and which are middle-of-the-road debts that need some kind of, further look. This was what the NAC government did anyway when we came into power in 2003. We had what was called a debt committee, you call it, pending bills committee, which did exactly that under the chairmanship of the late Minister Mwirarian. And I think counties will need to do that. Now, the thing is that where it is really criminal is where counties don't remit statutory deductions like NHIF, NSSF, and so on, because they jeopardize workers' future, if they're not. So, but one thing is certain, that we have a salvation in Article 226 of the Constitution, which says that a public official is responsible for his action when in responsibility or whether they are out of responsibility. In other words, if you cease to be a governor, you still have the executive power to answer for the travesties of your action when you are in office. So it not all is lost, as it were, but it only emphasizes one thing, that governance in counties must be properly done, as well as governance in the national government. This is the whole idea of having our constitution.
I think,
Let's say from Kisia, we'll come to you, Farah.
Yeah, I think it's not right to keep on blaming the national government for the debts that have been accrued by the county governments. Anyang, you had your time. Anyang, you had your time, give me my time. Anyang, you had your time, give me my time.
Yeah.
My good friend, Prof.
Yeah.
Now, what we should also be talking about here is how much the national government continues to pay on behalf of the counties. The international loans that were taken many years back, Nairobi, Kisumu, and others, and Mombasa. The national government continues to pay heavy debts that were accrued by the municipalities and the cities before we came to the counties. So if you cancel the two, probably fine, and that's why my articles had suggested that probably we need to carry out an audit. How much does the national government, how much has the national government been paying on behalf of counties to date, and how much does the national government actually owe the county governments? If you cancel the two, you may find that counties actually owe the national government money. But that's not important. What is important is that the counties, particularly the big ones, have doubled the taxes and levies, doubled. They have also automated. So, you don't need to have gone to school to understand that if you found the collection at 8 billion, or what we call, local income, 8 billion, and you increase fees and charges by more than 100%, you should be talking about a collection of 16 billion without sweat. Secondly, if you take the element of automation and assume a 25% increase in revenue every year, well, these counties should be swimming in money. They should not be relying on the national government for transfers. In fact, I think 15% is more than adequate if you have proper managers at the county level. But I think the other question, I don't know whether we should move the other issue that you had talked about. You talked about interference from government agencies. None other than my good friend, Professor Anyang Nyong'o, commended the police for doing a very good job.
Can we hold on to that? We hear from Farah on this issue of the counters went up on it, and then we'll go to other issues as well. Farah, briefly.
You see, I want to tell my friend Kisia, all these things were taken into consideration when we were passing this allocation for county governments and putting it at 15%. The idea was that the government has got those external debts, those obligations, and those obligations. We needed 85% to be able to take care of that. And give them, and there is no function that has been devolved that still is being taken care of by the central government. And even if it's been taken care of by the central government, the amount of budget that used to be for that function still by and large kept 85%, 80% of it is kept by the central government. But having said that, there's one issue that one needs to really take cognizance of. We did not emphasize a process in which when there is a change of guard from one governor to the other governor, that there will be debts. There will be debts incurred through that term, which will be rolled over to the next term. Unless there is revenue that was allocated, because you know the revenue that's allocated to the county government is in a trust fund. If you allocated, you can choose to spend only 10% or 20% of it as far as the development budget is concerned and keep the rest of it and maybe use it the last year or even the second term for some mega projects out there. It was not emphasized, whether it's in the CDF process or it's in the county governments. So for a county government right now to have mega debts rolled over is a travesty, in my opinion.
And it's going to be the case, by the way.
And it's going to be a travesty because then you will leave somebody, an incoming governor will have no capacity to be able to implement his own manifesto.
But we cannot exonerate the government from this as well, because also the government have not been very prompt in actually making sure...
I'm coming to it.
Yes.
I'm coming to it. You see, the central government was supposed to literally be the regulator on this thing. But because this is the second term, you see what happens in the first term. The mistake we made as a country ourselves is that we should have staggered the elections for these different offices over a period of time.
Exactly.
So that when you're voting for a president, you're not voting for any other office.
Exactly.
So that president can have the leeway to be able, either he is serving his last term when the governor is in there and he doesn't care about them, he's going to take a firm action on them, or he's serving the beginning. You see what I mean? And he has to show that this is what the campaign trail and this is what I promised Kenyans. But it's a lot of waste. But one thing I can assure you, come the next term, whether it's going to be a Jubilee government or a NASA government is already decided, unless there's going to be some rigging. We know that NASA is going to win these elections. But come the next government, we are not going to allow a situation in which we will handle these county governments with kid gloves. I think it's only fair that the central government cracks the whip and makes sure that they protect the public resources in such cases. Not in the manner that, you see, this country has got to be a nation of laws, not a nation by laws, where the government, rule of law, not rule by law. You see, rule by law is that when the government holds the law and selectively applies it and then uses it for its own things. Like now, what's happening with the governor for Garissa, Nadif Jama. I'm not out here to defend his own, legacy out there, but to say that he took straight from the IFMIS and took it into his own account at 5.2 billion shillings. I mean, that is a joke. I'm sure the man is a banker. He's a managing director of a bank. Even if he had intended to do that, he's not going to move straight from the IFMIS into his personal account. Right. You see what I mean? But this is now the body that was supposed to be dealing with this thing and cracking the whip on this thing and making sure that there's prudency, there's efficiency of the county government is being used. The credibility is lost.
All right, thank you.
There's a senior politician, most likely, who's pushing for these things. And that's how we end up with this kind of a situation.
All right. Okay, Jubilee, on the spot over unfair tactics, unless you want to weigh in on this, but I think we should wind up with that. I think you've said it exhaustively as far as the county government is concerned.
But just one last thing.
Very briefly, sir.
One thing, as chairman of Public Accounts Investment Committee, I would not defend any county, whether Jubilee or NASA, over misuse of public funds. None. But all I am asking for is that we have evidential arguments.
Fair.
In other words, where is the evidence? Is it in the Auditor General's reports?
Yes.
Or is this the control of budget? Fortunately, those institutions do give very credible information because they're well researched. And I do know, I just don't have time here, that when it comes to that, there are travesties across the political divide.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, and the government, the Auditor General has been undermined by the central government. Yeah. You see, the only office that would have been cracking these things on the county government has been totally undermined by the central government.
Thank you. Let's hear from Dr. Zani, because not really on this issue, but we want to move because of the interest of time. That the issue of IBC and the issue of ballot stuffing, because this is what also you have been in courts And I think, is the matter still in court? It is still, it's not in court, where you are actually talking about the ballot stuffing and the issue of, in case we have the electronic system failing, the complementary aspect of it has not been very clear.
There's a danger there.
And you're saying this is an avenue, a lacuna, that maybe the current incumbent, the incumbent can actually now take advantage and have.
Yeah, this is a big lacuna. And yesterday I was in a talk show yesterday evening, and one of the honorable members there said, you see, when we were looking at the issue of the numbers, for example, when the verification was being done, and a case in point is Embu County, where when you add up the totals from Mbeere North, Runyenjes, Manyata, and Mbeere South, the total you should be getting should be 291,945. And then we have such a gross misrepresentation, an addition of 17,523, and therefore giving that county a total of 309,468. The other case that came was the case of Tana River, you know, and you're talking about a total of, if you take 17,000 and a total of from Tana River, about 6,000, you're talking about a total of almost 21,000 extra votes or potential for votes that have been sort of put into the system. And therefore it raises the issue of, you know, tinkering into the system. And this person who I was with on the show said, yes, you see, that's why we wanted to make sure we have the manual backup. And I said, it's precisely for that reason that we cannot afford to do that. We need to be able to have a biometric system that's going to work, and especially the identifier that people should be able to first record themselves so that they're able to vote. Otherwise, minus that, you're going to have all these sort of dead voters. But I just want to talk about the connection again with IBC and the need for stakeholder participation, and also the way the corporations are sieving into this, and the fact that people, whenever they speak out, it seems to be like, oh, you know, slow down on this. You know, it's better to say most of this before the elections rather than after the election, because if we do that, then we're able to address the various issues. When the code was put out, the 70000, Kenyans went in immediately. And you know, even after we had the reassurance from, for example, KPMG, that had actually done audit of the voter registration and clarification that everything was in order, we have many, many people who went and checked for their dead relatives. They found those names there and no explanation given. When they tried the various codes, 00, I think 66.
Just, 10 only.
Even 10, but also the others. The others.
I also took a screenshot of actually some of the alphabets. We have O, we have Q, and then it's just giving names of people.
And what are we saying? What are we saying about this? Because this is a thing that should have been really thoroughly scrutinized. And I think just when we're building up in terms of confidence towards the IBC, and we get that, but I think that's not the worst of it. The worst of it is that after it has happened, about 3 days later, we haven't had anything from IBC, you know, in terms of explanation. An accident would be explained very quickly, I think. So this sort of a delay in even giving reassurances or saying what has happened is really making Kenyans wait in anxiety to hear exactly what will be said. But I think you probably want us to touch also on all the other institutions, if I can, very briefly. And I want to touch on NCIC as well, you know, in terms of the interaction with the Kenyans and with the IBC, and on the fact about the 10 million strong, which is above 51%, which is 50+1, which is what anybody needs to get to be able to win the election. So when you have a rallying call for 10 million strong, it cannot be looked at something that is detrimental, for example, for a country. And yet the same Ole Kaparo, Honorable Kaparo, when we had the Jubilee call for 70+1, which is actually a total of almost 13,000 million votes, nothing was mentioned of it. So I think we need to go back again to the balancing act. And I think if we turn to page 7 as well, we have the CS, Honorable Kiunjuri, you know, just blatantly, openly campaigning. I think this is what this headline is about. Jubilee, the sport of unfair tactics. These are the various unfair tactics, including some of the adverts that are run every evening on attainment and achievement from one part of the coalition. I think we're flouting it a bit too openly, and that's not what the expectation should be.
All right, let's say from Philip Kisia, because of course this is the saying that it's giving what are they saying, with little over a month to the election day, concerns have been raised that state agencies are stifling perceived opponents of the government while drumming up support for Jubilee Party, which is which flies in the face of what also the Constitution really says. So given that we have this evidence here also in the Daily Nation today and what is ongoing, and some of them certainly denying that, yes, they're not doing it. And we can see also from the fundraising, some of the top-notch government officials in the upper reaches of government are also in these particular launches, and they're saying as not a commissioner of so-and-so organization, but as in person, which we cannot really draw a demarcation line. Isn't that unfair? What do you have to say?
First of all, let me start by saying that as Kenyans, we need to appreciate work that is done by other fellow Kenyans. Chebukati and team have been there for less than 6 months in office. So they have tried as much as they could to ensure that they are ready to oversee a free and fair election. But let me come back to the issues that my friend Zani has raised, whether some of the state agencies have been working against opposition, or rather they have favored government. None other than my friend, respected Professor Anyang Nyong'o, has admitted on this show that the police are doing a good job. And the police have done a good job.
I didn't say the police.
No.
An incident you assume.
Okay, that incident.
That.
He commended that incident. And there are many other incidences where the police have done a commendable job. So we need to appreciate that one. The other thing, you may want to refer to are state officers. But I don't think the Constitution stops any state officer from espousing, from telling Kenyans what the government has done. I have not heard of any state officer campaigning. And if there's evidence, I'm sure by now Anyang Nyong'o should have been, should have been in court. But because there's no evidence of such, the rest remains a rumor. Let's talk about, because you're mentioning KRA. Where does KRA come in? KRA has a very clear mandate. And if KRA is raining on those people who are flouting the Act, the KRA Act, I think we should not encourage, just like Anyang has said previously, that it doesn't matter which governor, either Jubilee or NASA, if they have done certain things that go against the Constitution, then of course they need to bear responsibility.
Thank you.
Finally, what role does the national government have in elections? The national government's responsibility is to ensure that they have given capacity to the electoral body to ensure that there's a free and fair election. What have the government done? Have they given them the necessary budgets in terms of resources? Do we have the right MIS? Do we have the right machinery? Has the voter register been audited?
All right.
That is the responsibility of the electoral body, not the national government.
All right. We shall hear from you, Farah, briefly, but we want to hear also what people are saying on Twitter. Just a moment, Farah. We'll hear from you. We want to hear from Twitter as well. And Usha, she's standing by with you, say.
Right, been something, a lot of your feedback seems to have a variety of opinions. Remember, you still can get your opinion through AM Live and TV. That is how you can reach us, and we will try to get as many of your comments sampled. So we begin with Amos, who says, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, the biggest counties are controlled by NASA, yet we have poor service delivery. That is the norm. We have garbage and potholes. We also have David, who says most money meant for development is siphoned to fund the principal's campaign. These are the same people calling themselves messiahs. We also have Biko, who says watu wakutane kwa debe, hii yote ni story. We have Patrick, who says Kisia must understand the current county structure is quite different from before, and much funds are needed to bring each county to par. We have Samuel, who says we need to have credible government, be it national or county. That is ensuring that each leader works within the laid down laws. We also have John Gidanga, who says August 8th elections will be the most unpredictable duel since independence. Both Jubilee and NASA have nearly equal number of voters. There is Kirimi, who says politicians and cartels are cesspits of revenue and have sucked the life out of our cities. We also have John Tay, who says most of our governors have failed. The only thing they have done is devolve their pockets. Samuel, who says when all the sectors, both in national and county government, are all in corruption, it thrives without interruption. We have Ken, who says the lieutenants of Jubilee are not telling us how this government has disappointed us, but are busy supporting a failed system. We also have Ali, who says IEBC must suspend campaigns in areas where chaos are the order of the day. And finally, we have, yes, that actually happened to be the last one. So looking at today's climate, it would seem that today there wasn't so much of people supporting NASA or Jubilee. It was what came out strongly was that people think that the leadership is failing, regardless of whichever side they're on. So remember, AM Live and TV, that is how you can get your comments through. We are also live on Facebook. Let me just show that to you. Yes, we are also live on Facebook. So head down to our Facebook page and get your comment through. Back to you, Debra.
Right, and of course also we want to interrogate the issue of some of these politicians visiting witch doctors, right? This is now really seeming to be the order of the day. Do you want leaders who also consult some of these witch doctors, you know, and maybe soothsayers as well? Where do we also put a grid when it comes to our leaders and maybe matters of spirituality? Maybe that is a food for thought for us as well. But let's continue with the conversation. Before we come to you, Prof, you'll answer, but we want to hear from Alice, especially to react on this, because I don't want us to also escape on the notion that we had the SMS coming, the SMS portal coming from IBC, and different people complaining that when they put their IDs, they don't really get a reflection of what it should be. And when you put certain initials like Q, right? You have a voter here, your voter registration details, name, I'll block out the names and just read the last one, Mushira, County Kirinyaga, but what he had put, it's O. Then we have Q, your voter registration details, name QQ, right? County, Taita Taveta, constituency, Mwatete, we have polling station code 070, polling station Manoa Dispensary, Ward Chawia, and name is QQ. So in light of what we had given to the KPMG, a tidy cool sum of money to actually try and you know, sanitize this particular voter registration, and yet we still have this. Do you think maybe we're just also putting our money, or we've not been actually being given good service by the KPMG and the credibility of also this voter register?
Okay, you know, Debra, there are two questions coming in that you wanted us to comment on whether the public bodies, public servants and state officers are campaigning. I'm yet to see an individual or an institution campaigning for any political party. An accusation here is directed at Jubilee. And I think we need to bring or to expect that there is a division. There is a difference between a government that is working and an opposition. You see, government does not shut down because there are campaigns going on. And I think programs will continue to run. We will expect Chunjuri or any other CS to ensure that if there is an activity by the office that is running, that activity will not stop until September.
Isn't it the same constitution?
And I think, yes, there is nowhere that the constitution will say.
No, but isn't this, okay, maybe I'm not really privy to it, but isn't the same constitution really barring, you know, state officials or even the government itself, some few months towards general election, to actually come and flaunt what they've been doing?
There is nothing like that. You see, Debra, clearly, if there is, say, an airport or a road that has been completed, and the timing, fortunately or unfortunately, is now, will that road wait until, it's a service to the public, wait until we go to elections? I think we must understand that the government does not shut down. There is nowhere in the constitution that you'll be told you cannot campaign using government resources. From the election you cannot campaign using government resources. But when the president goes to open, for example, to launch a government project, he is not wearing Jubilee colors. He is not in a Jubilee T-shirt. You have seen that he will be in his own rallies, but also maybe in the morning, he is hosting a delegation from outside the country. If really that is what we are going to call campaigning, then I think we need to say 2 months to elections or 90 days to elections, the government must not run. So let's even look at the questions that are being raised here. You see, the IEBC has said they are not going to respond to fears, to allegations from the opposition or any other quarter, because he wants to deliver elections. You raised the question of integrity and spending money on KPMG. I think, Debra, the process of cleaning up, I think we are now being asked to send your ID number and check whether your names are okay. You know, we had a window period where we were supposed to actually go and verify. And this brings back the point that was there, that do you need manual? Because these are electronic devices.
All right.
And I think, Debra, if there is a register that has been printed from the same electronic processes, and that register is in this booklet, there is nothing wrong in referring to that.
But what will be now the bugbear and fear of IBC to coming or
Even
coming to the public and telling
mistake.
us this is a complementary avenue that will have if the electronic system fails?
But are we pretending, are we operating in a vacuum or in utopia?
Right.
We are in this country.
Okay, let's say from Farah will come to you, Prof, in a moment.
Even in this office, Debra,
You see,
electronic systems sometimes go down.
Yeah, that's what
We
we're
have
saying.
only 12 hours
Yeah, that's what we're saying.
to carry out
Why can't you come
voting?
to the public and say this will be the alternative in case the electronic system fails? Let's say from Farah.
the electronic system should never fail. If one fails, the IEBC tells us there's a backup. They have got 4,000. It's 4,000 more. What do you call kits? Biometric kits, more than the ones which are identifying the voter identification kit also, which are there as spare. Every ward, there will be some spares that are going to be put in there. So the idea is that when this one fails, then you use this backup. They even want to use satellite. They give us the confidence that this system will not fail. It's a foolproof system, so you don't have to worry about it. The moment this system fails, because the Waki report, the Kriegler report, all of them emphasized on the 100% veracity of this system itself. It has to work. It works in the rest of the world. Why should it not work in our case? Now, just hold your horse, Kisia. I can see you're huffing and trying to say something, but listen fast. Now, the other thing I want to say is that it's not us who have complained. We have complained, yes. But it's the Human Rights Watch. It accuses state agents. I'm sure Alice did not read this article today in the paper. That accuses, hang on a minute, it's an international, it's a Washington-based. It's an international body. It's not.
This is our country.
Oh, it's in Kenya, then you can do what you want. Anyway, let me just finish. Let me just finish.
Let's not allow people.
Let me just finish.
When did a Kenyan organization comment on U.S. elections or European elections?
We still sent our let me finish.
But why would Uhuru Kenyatta also commend the European Union observers also on the same issue? When
and see them and sit with them.
But in this country, the observers are part of our processes. When they come here, they're not just commenting from nowhere.
Okay,
let me finish. And it says Human Rights Watch accuses state agents of undermining the constitution by openly getting involved in political campaigns. Kenya Revenue Authority, the police, the NGO Coordinating Board, the National Cohesion and Integration Board, the Electoral Agency are some of the organizations that have shown open bias. Some, by the way, there are very many more. And if you read the whole article, you'll see a lot of it. Yes. Now, the point I'm trying to say is that you cannot, I have no problem with ministers. For your information, the state, what do you call the state officers with ministers, because these are political appointees and they move out with their own appointing authority, I have my doubts. I don't really find a lot of fault in them going out there. But what I find fault is that them using those executive authority that they will right now to try and influence the results of the election, either through the Ministry of Internal Security and sending officers everywhere and making sure that the party, the incumbency is protected. No, those are the kind of things we have problems with. But for them to sell the values and sell the development record of their own political party, I find no problem with that. But look at the NCIC, the national cohesion. And if the national cohesion, the chairman, comments on the 10 million you know, strong banner that we have out there and rubbishes that and says, no, they don't have that. He's a politician. I know I have no problem with Kaporo being a politician. They're all friend of mine. But for God's sake, don't occupy this position, which is supposed to be an independent position. And at the same time, proceed on and get involved in this double in politics.
Let's hear from Prof. Briefly, as we're giving our winding thoughts as well.
I want to be very brief. What do we want? We want a free and fair election.
Yes.
And the president, in meeting these observers, assured them of free and fair election. How do we guarantee a free and fair election? By trying to minimize behavior by political parties, by candidates, and by the state agencies, which can jeopardize that free and fair election, or which can somehow show some bias in that free and fair election. It is only a few weeks left that state agencies and civil servants are asked to keep out of politics and be civil. The word civil means you serve citizens irrespective of their political ideas, their religion, their sex, whatever. Be civil. And really, this is really not the time to begin engaging in activities which will somehow jeopardize this civility and jeopardize the free and fair election. So it will only be fair for the government with as clean as Caesar's wife at this point in time, because it is a government responsibility, as the presidents are saying, to guarantee a free and fair election. Now, when we have an article like this, that the NGO Coordination Board, Mr. Fazul, I mean, it's a sad story when you see that in his own actions, he's trying to jeopardize a free and fair election by taking certain steps that show political bias. Now, really, we just want people to be fair at this point in time. Most of all, the government. You see what I mean? And finally, Anyang, let me say the following. That in terms of voting and these BVRs and so on, and the voter identification gadget during the voting, which is the same as the BVR anyway, I saw it in Nigeria. I was an observer in Ibadan, and these things were there. Nigerian polling stations are in the streets. They never failed. And first of all, each polling station had about 3 of those gadgets. And they had batteries and electrical, so that they were double sure that however long the voting took, they would never fail. Why can't we do it here?
Right, good question.
Yeah, I just want to add that right from the beginning.
The
the cabinet secretaries were very clear. And I remember a couple of cabinet secretaries commenting earlier on and saying, you know, we're not going to get involved in politics, you know, and they've steered clear. So the timing is miraculous that suddenly those who are really focusing on that, because that is something that was very, very clear, especially in a parliamentary system, and that they would actually stick to their duties. Now, I think when they're using that executive order that they have, because then they can actually force people, or they can determine that certain action is taken because of their positions. And that was the fear, that they actually stay away from politics and that they serve all Kenyans fairly. But I think really this election is going to be about credibility and openness. And if we are to find visibility, that is what is going to be clear. That transparent aspect needs to be very, very much put into place. If that is not put into place, and I think the questions that are being asked now, Mheshimiwa Alice Wahome said that Chebukati said he's not going to answer. We have to be very careful. We have to be very careful that one, we're talking about stakeholder participation, 2, we're talking about independence, but that does not erode stakeholder participation. That is very clear. Everything that is said is going to help to make this, unless we don't want a visible one, for whatever reasons, so that we can have a chance to...
Philip Kisia, very briefly.
I think, very briefly, Debra, NASA should just prepare for a free and fair election. I don't know why they're panicking. They should not panic. They should continue selling their manifestos and programs. There's nothing to worry about. But let me just make a point in reference to what my brother said here. There is the issue of gadget, that's hardware. If one hardware fails, you can bring another one. But there is the issue of software.
Software should not fail.
In event it fails, it has failed even in aircrafts.
It shouldn't.
It has failed even in aircraft.
Made to fail.
Very rarely, I agree.
Why
But in event,
Okay.
in event.
All right.
Then you
Let
have
him just give me let him making his point
the
briefly,
word was
please.
in event.
then another backup
In
of the
event.
same digital backup.
No.
Keep the digital backup
I'm
for
not
that.
talking about hardware.
All right, thank you.
I'm talking about the software.
Software.
Yeah, another
Let
software.
him just finish. Finish your point, please.
If that is the case, then of course we must revert to something else. We cannot deny people from voting just because software has failed.
Thank you. And this something else is what we are not being told.
They're
What is the
hell-bent-
something else?
They're hell bent on rigging this thing, and the only way to rig it is to make all these machines fail. There will be no elections in these machines fail. I'll tell you one thing. Because we had that last time.
All right,
because then when they fail, one person can vote 10 times. You get my point? You have the register here. They don't just
So
take his name.
you had here said there will be no elections.
All right.
Well,
That
look.
statement should not pass.
It should listen to me.
pass.
Let him
Listen,
substantiate them.
listen
He
to
has
me.
not even finished.
I'm going to finish.
We are actually strapped for time.
Listen
Say it
to
on the
me.
nose, we
Listen
are
to
strapped
me.
for time.
Nobody wants to participate in a flawed system. Let me be honest
Thank
with
you.
you. We will not legitimize
Thank you.
illegality.
Thank you. Alice, you got 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I think elections are coming on 8th of August, and Kenyans must be prepared to vote. We are calling upon the IEBC to ensure free and fair elections, but also the opposition to be prepared to either lose or actually stay away, because they don't have to vote. They don't have to participate in elections if they know they have lost elections.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Alice.
But
Wahome.
I think that kind of statement is very dangerous because it really doesn't guarantee people a free and fair election.
All right, thank you.
We want guaranteed free and fair
Thank
elections.
you, thank you. All right, thank you very much. We need to wind up.
It's clear where
Thank
the
you.
support is, really.
Once you guarantee that,
All right, thank you.
once you guarantee that, then there is no chance of it. No,
Thank
everybody
you.
will have to be there.
All right, thank you very much. We appreciate our panelists this morning, and for you also chiming in on Twitter as well. And of course, we shall be looking what is happening this week. We keep our eyes peeled and keep out our ears as well. And we shall be having this discussion next week as well. Thank you for your valued company. My name is Debra Inea.